Is there evidence of the ancient Kushites lineage in Kalanga culture? In northern Sudan, archaeological evidence shows that people have lived for 300,000 years. The oldest sub-Saharan African empire, the Kingdom of Kush, was established in that area around 2500 to 1500 BCE. Their culture in the region of the Nile produced the finest ceramics such as Kerma beakers. Rich natural resources, especially gold, ebony and ivory, made the region attractive. The British Museum collection includes many items composed of these materials during the Old Kingdom around 2686 to 2181 BCE. Egyptians were drawn southward in search of these resources, which often resulted in conflict as Egyptians and Sudanese rulers clashed for power to control business activity. About 1700 BCE, Kush was the most powerful state in the Nile Valley. Following a conflict between Egypt and Kush around 1504 to 1492 BCE, Thutmose I conquered Kush. Neolithic cultures survived in the west and south because these regions were outside the sphere of influence of the Egyptian pharaohs. In the 11th century BCE, Egypt withdrew and the Sudanese monarchs became increasingly strong. Around 747 to 656 BCE, they conquered Egypt and established themselves as pharaohs. Their dominion connected the Nile Valley from Khartoum to the Mediterranean at its height. The Sphinx of King Tahako still stands as a reminder of the Kushite people's might. Eventually, the Assyrians drove the Kushites out of Egypt, but their reign persisted in Sudan for an additional millennium. Ages of Isis in the museum collection and the chapel relief of Queen Shanakdaket both show a rich fusion of pharaonic, Greco-Roman and indigenous African traditions in their monuments and artwork. Kerma's cultures reached their peak between 2500 and 1500 BCE. Ceramics were their most famous product. Without the use of a wheel, the potters were able to create extremely beautiful objects by hand. The pot displayed here is from the classic Kerma phase, which lasted from approximately 1750 to 1550 BCE. The distinctive black top and rich reddish-brown base of classical Kerma ceramics are divided by an erratic band of purple-gray. Typically, the interiors and black tops are incredibly delicate and have a unique metallic, shiny aspect. Have you noticed something in the images of these pots? Are there any similarities between the Kushite pottery and the ones found in the Kalanga people of southern Africa, the Nguni, the Soto, and many other ethnic groups? During Egypt's early invasions into Sudan, Kerma maintained its independence. After the Kushites' defeat in 1500 BC, the Egyptians established control over the region through a diplomat known as the Viceroy of Kush, who was located in Kerma. About 1070 BCE, the Egyptians left Sudan, and by the 9th century, another strong Kushite dynasty emerged. By the middle of the 9th century BCE, the Kushite monarch Kashta had expanded his influence to Tebes in Egypt, taking advantage of the political unrest and instability that existed there. By approximately 716 BCE, his successor Pianki Pai had gained total authority over the Egyptian Nile Valley. He established the 25th dynasty in Egypt with his three successors, Shabako, Tahako, and Tamutaman, recognized as the country's rightful rulers. Their capital was Napata, a significant religious hub close to the fourth cataract of the Nile. Assyrians ended Kushite rule around 674 and 663 BCE, but Kush remained a powerful force in Sudan for more than a millennium. The Kushite kings were buried at Meroe, northeast of Khartoum, in an area of lush grasslands after 300 BC. Meroe emerged as the hub of a thriving economy and established trade connections with the Mediterranean region. Egyptian influence was evident in art and architecture, but archaeology also suggests that indigenous customs were developing. There was also a strong local flavor to religion, with Egyptian Amun, Osiris, and Isis coexisting with Nubian deities like the lion-headed Apedemach. Around 350 CE, the Kushite dynasty came to an end. In Egyptology, a broad collar topped by a goddess head, possibly Isis in the instance, is referred to as an aegis. According to representations found in temples, these items adorned the holy boats that transported the gods in procession during festivals. At the prow and stern, there were aegises mounted. These symbols probably originated from one of Isis' sacred boats, as the deity's head indicated the boat's occupant. Originally, the goddess's eyes and eyebrows were inlaid. Later, Kushite art is typified by the big eyes, which are further emphasized by the inlay. The uraeus, which recognized her as a goddess, was formerly housed in the rectangular hole in her forehead. The only remnant of her headpiece is a vulture with its wing feathers visible just below her ear. Originally worn by the goddess Mut, consort of Amun of Thebes, the vulture headdress eventually spread to all goddesses. The remaining headdress for the aegis, which had cow horns and a sun disk, was cast separately and is no longer in existence. The sculpture features a cartouche of the Lion Temple's architect, the Kushite king Anekarman, who ruled from roughly 235 to 218 BCE.